Listen. That technique of yours is powerful, sure, but it's also risky. And I told you to call me Gojo Senpai. I categorically refuse. Does it matter anyway? You have your limitless. I have my creation of all things. We were born with these abilities. Maybe, but think of it like this. Dying to win and risking death to win are two completely different things. With a strong foundation, and a little bit of sense, imagination, even a pinch of regret, it just takes the slightest trigger to change a person. After all, this isn't your first life, is it, Naoya? Wait, how did you figure it out? I thought I did a good job hiding it from Maki and Mai. You did for the most part, but it's the eyes. People say eyes are the window to the soul. Now, that we've determined that, are you going to tell me you really are? Alright, fine. You win. My real name is. A discussion between the strongest, surpass your limits. To live as a shinobi is to die with a spark of hope in your heart. To live as a jujutsu sorcerer is to live with regret. To live as a person, one must embrace it. What's that? My regrets? I have a few. Almost too many to mention. Who doesn't? We all have them. Doesn't matter if you're strong or weak. Human or a cursed spirit. It's a fact of life and death. We all have regrets. Mine were a little more. Myriad before the end. I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd saved more people. I wish I'd protected everyone I could. I wish those idiots didn't start the fourth shinobi war. I wish I never knew what it felt like to fall in love, or lose that love. I died with so many damn regrets. Frankly, it's a miracle I didn't become a special grade curse on the spot. Assuming those things existed back then. Even in the shinobi era, there were all sorts of things we feared back in the day. There was so much anger, so much fear, so much hate leading up to the fourth shinobi war and then all that transpired afterward. Did we inadvertently create the concept curses from all the chaos? Were they always there, unable to do anything? Or was it a final act of spite on her part? The latter seems likely, but I can't be sure. Even now, I don't have the answers. After all, I didn't live to see the aftermath of the war. But I didn't mind dying to kill Kaguya. Alright, maybe I did. Just a little. Someone had to take her down. Had to be me. Someone else would have gotten it wrong. Sakura and Kakashi sensei were already dead. Sasuke wasn't gonna do it, so I did. I didn't ask to die. I didn't ask to be reincarnated as Naoya Zenin in a world I didn't understand. I definitely didn't choose, no matter what anyone might say, to reborn into a clad colder than the freakin' Uchiha. You'd think getting isekai'd is that the word kids use these days? Would be fun. Everyone dreams of it. Apparently it's a popular fad in this era. So you would expected it to be entertaining, right? Something to enjoy, be happy about, and celebrate, yeah? Except it ain't. Every day in the Zenin clan is the same. Every damn day. Inherit the Zenin clan techniques, or die trying. Become strong, stronger than everyone else. Surpass your limits. From the moment I could walk, this cruel criteria was enforced upon me. Any who don't meet it start their lives as failures in the clan. They're not even allowed to stand at the starting line. Without the clan lineage they're not considered people, and if they're not people, they're given nothing. No hope, no joy, no freedom, only pain. There's no room for family here as failure, no love, no nothing. All the while the higher-ups prattle on with their righteous dogma and bullshit. We must not bend the rules of the group for the individual. The weak shall be culled. Dying's easy. Living's hard. You must learn to bear such things, they say. Carve them into your heart and never forget them. Hold them in your heart. Ha! Who am I kidding? I see the way they look at those who fail. I hear their whispers about Maki and Mai. They're frail. Weak. They shouldn't be allowed to exist. 5 years old, and their parents treat them like trash, my father, even more so. As if they don't even exist. No, that would be better than the torment they suffer. Torment I've tried and failed to stop. And yet the clan treats me like a prodigal son. I lack for nothing. Why? Because I'm quick to learn? Because I have my own innate technique that surpasses theirs? Because I might be able to compete with someone called Gojo Satoru who I haven't even met, someday in the distant future? I can't claim to understand it. Maybe it's better I don't. Ignorance is bliss. Is what I would like to say, but I stopped closing my eyes to that a long time ago, didn't I? It's complicated, I know. In theory, a jujutsu sorcerer should have only one basic technique, an ability they build upon at a time. Rare ones have two. The limit is 4, or so I've been told. Any higher than that and you're asking for brain burn. Mine takes all those rules and laughs at them. Man, I gotta thank the old sage for this. More on that later. Truth be told, I don't fully understand the specifics myself. I'm still testing my limits and I haven't hit them yet. Maybe it's a result of Kurama dying with me. Maybe something got mixed up inside my soul when he and the other tailed beasts passed. Maybe that's why I possess insane reserves of cursed energy. Why I can still pull off such insane feats just like my shinobi days. They say my technique, my ideals, threatens to shake the very foundation upon which we stand. Wanna know what I think of that? Good. Jujutsu Society and these wretched prideful idiots that run it, needs to be turned on its head. Tell me, what makes us obligated to meet such perfection or such absurd demands? To hell with what the old geezers think. I say all that, but I don't remember much of my early life as Naoya. Those first 2 years were a blur. I'm told the moment I was born into this world, the skies darkened and the earth shook. The second coming of Gojo Satoru, they called me. I didn't even know who he was at first. Can you believe it? I'd learn in time. And once I became aware of things by the age of 3, I was off to the races. I exorcised my first curse at 3. Butchered my first special grade by 5. And by 10, I finally met my baffling, exasperating, adorable cousins. It was also the first day I murdered someone in cold blood. 0.0.0.0. They said Naoya Zenien was scary. Maki really didn't think so. He was just odd. For someone who supposedly represented the pride of the clan, he didn't look like a walking disaster. From the rumors you would have thought him 6 feet tall with eyes of fire and 4 arms or something. A walking disaster that might one day stand up to Satoru Gojo himself and challenge him for the title of the strongest. He appeared before her and Mai one summer evening by chance. The moment she met him, her opinion deflated. A monster with 4 arms and blazing eyes? Where? She saw only a boy. Naoya was not at all as the rumors had painted him to be. He was near their age for one and had dyed his hair blonde, although she really wasn't one to talk given hers was green and was as far from the imposing creature she'd feared her would be as he could be. The setting sun caught his hair and almost made him seem to glow as he smiled and waved their way. It was a moment she'd never forget as long as she lived. So you're the twins I've heard nothing about. He planted both hands in his pockets and leaned forward to regard them. It's almost like the old man didn't want me to meet you. Just as quickly, he ripped a hand free and offered it to them. It's so nice to finally meet you. I'm Naoya, your cousin. We've got a lot to talk about. Care to chat for a minute? Mai shrank behind her, the crybaby. You're loud. Am I? He looked a little chagrined at that. Sorry, it's just so nice to finally meet you. Maki winced. What was she supposed to say to that? Go away? She'd said that to Dad once and gotten smacked around for it. Naoya didn't seem the sort to do that sort of thing. But you could never tell. She certainly couldn't. She was only 5 after all. He seemed sad somehow when he looked at them, yet it wasn't pity, not pity, no, never pity. She didn't think she could bear it otherwise. So what if she couldn't see cursed spirits like Mai? She was strong. In terms of raw physical strength, he was probably already near the level of an adult. And she'd only get stronger. How about, little Miss Maki? He offered. We can spar sometime if you like. Something sparked to life in her just then. It felt like acceptance. She wanted more, craved more. No, she needed more of that. Maki made her decision then, as only a child could. Yosh, I'm gonna marry him. .0.0.0. He gets me. To be fair, little Mai wasn't sure how or why, but he did. Naoya didn't mock or disparage her like father and uncle did. He simply gave her advice. You don't have much cursed energy? Here's a way to increase your output. What's that? You're afraid of curses? Don't worry. I'll teach you a trick to deal with them. Stuff like that. As her cousin, Naoya Zenin was everything she and Mai weren't. Strong and fast. Surging with cursed energy even a weakling like her could detect. But for all that he was also kind, humble and nice. So very nice. Was that the right word? She didn't know. She was 5 and he was older than them. The only one who was kind to them in this place. And like any forsaken child to whom even a bit of affection and support is shown, she latched onto him. Oh, yes. Mai Zenin latched hard. He's mine. .0.0.0. From that moment a rivalry would be born. Albeit not the sort one might expect. Not at all. .0.0.0. The girls were glaring at one another. No, 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 that just wouldn't do. Troublesome. Naruto heaved a sigh and crouched down on their level, letting each clinging to his arms. Mai had a hold of his left, and Maki his right. Neither seemed to be in any hurry to let go. And they were staring absolute daggers at one another, so might as well nip that in the bud while he could. Hey, now. He tugged his hands from their grasp. Sisters shouldn't fight one another. Male wilted. Maki started it. Oi, you were the one who glared at me first. And I'm ending it. He poked her forehead, drawing a whine from the stronger girl. Behave, the both of you. I have 2 hands, so you can each hold one. Sound fair? They glared at the ground and refused to look at him. Okay. He'd come to regret those words later. They'd be a source of much amusement and chaos in the coming years. But for now, ignorant to the promise he'd inadvertently made, Naruto could only sigh. Many wondered why he dyed his hair blonde. These days he did it out of spite, but also to look less threatening. People liked bright colors. These two certainly seemed to. Because neither made any move to strike up a third argument so long as they held onto him. Surely they'd get bored of him eventually, right? Right? Look, I need to have a talk with my old man. If the 2 of you behave, I'll take you out for ice cream. Mai perked up. Maki was bolder and tilted her head to regard him like some shiny glittering jewel, which he supposed he was and might well be to these poor, oppressed girls. Promise? He held out his little finger and let her loop hers around it. Cross my heart and hope to die. Mai latched onto his finger with a happy cry. Stick a needle in your eye. His heart twitched. Precious twins. Must keep them safe at all costs. He really shouldn't say anything, he really shouldn't, but if want to leave the clan, you should. The twins recoiled with a loud But when you do so, do it together. He poked both their foreheads, then tousled their hair for good measure. You're sisters. That means family. Family doesn't leave family behind. And speaking of family, His gaze zeroed in on the marks they bore on their wrists and necks. Subtle bruises not quite hidden behind the sleeves and collars of their yukata. Why don't you tell me who hurt the two of you? Mai clammed up. Fair. He expected as much, and so he turned to her twin instead. Dad did it. Maki stared at him with those piercing eyes of hers, idly rubbing a wrist. He called it training, but it hurt. Realization sparked in her gaze. You're going to get hurt if you confront him. Naruto's smile thinned. So it was Ogi Zenin after all. Good. He'd never liked that arrogant man and the feeling was mutual. Don't worry. He waved her down with a laugh. I'm the strongest. Mai tilted her head. I thought Satoru Gojo was the strongest. He's older than me, so it doesn't count. Maki quirked a green brow at him. It really does. Then he can come down here and take the title from me himself, sheesh. 0.0.0. Miles away, a certain someone sneezed. Huh? Think that Zenin brat's talking about me, Suguru? An empty soda can pinged off his head. You're getting full of yourself, Satoru. 0.0.0. Naoya? Naruto blinked. Maki was still staring his way. Gay. Clever girl, always seeing right through him. He'd really have to be careful around her in the future. In hindsight, he knew he shouldn't have mentioned the bruises, much less the fact that couldn't stay here forever. Sooner or later he would have to leave. Or do something about the way the Zenin clan was run. Depart? Or change them? Both seemed impossible. He had no means or methods to provide for himself should he strike out on his own. Sure, he could kill curses for Moini, but no one was going to hire a child not yet in his teens to fulfill any sort of contract. Jujutsu High was an option, but that was for the future and the future was not now. He couldn't survive properly on his own, much less provide for Maki and Mai at present. Not through legal means, and he wasn't confident in his ability to create money using creation of all things at present. Likewise, if he went the way of a curse user, he'd be hunted down by the upper echelons, which meant fleeing or killing every sorcerer in the country. Also a hard no so how to make the clan ease up on the twins. At present, there was just no feasible way to shield them from the rest of the clan until they were old enough to act for themselves, defend themselves, make decisions for themselves. Unless there was another option, a darker option, a path he'd not even considered, one so foul that it made him feel filthy just thinking of it. He was no Itachi Uchiha. He shouldn't be contemplating killing his kin because it was easy. And yet, did he care about these people? No. Were they good people? Excepting Maki and Mai, no. Would he shed any tears if these bastards and bullies died? He already knew the answer, of course. Anyone with a half a brain cell would. The Zenin clan fawned over him because of his power, but he knew if the circumstances were reversed, he'd be the one cast out into the mud. It sickened him. For the first time since he'd been reborn, it made him angry. Even now he found himself subconsciously drawing on the natural energy in the air around him, pulling it into his body alongside his cursed energy and chakra as he drew on the fury, let it fester inside him. That's a scary look you've got there. He looked down to Maki and found Mai gazing up at him timidly. Oops. He'd radiated a bit of killing intent there. These two were far too perceptive. Now, he patted their heads. Don't worry about a thing. Just let me handle this. Little hands grabbed at his. You'll come back, right? His heart broke a little. Sure. 0.0.0. Were you the one who hurt them? Ogi Zenin looked up from his meditations. You should know better than to associate with those failures, nephew. Naoya's bright eyes were eerily blank, almost worryingly so. Answer my question, uncle. Do you mean the bruises? Yes, that was me. They are my daughters and I shall do with them as I please." His nephew didn't reward him with words. Just a simple flat stare. Something curdled in the elder Zenon's soul at the sight. He'd seen that expression before. It reminded him of Toji. Thunk. .0.0.0. "I won't allow it, Naoya." Naruto rolled his eyes in mild exasperation. "Yes, you will." Truth be told, he knew there would be resistance. He'd expected it, desired it, even. Because you see, resistance gave him an excuse. It made him feel justified. Strong. Powerful. A seductive whisper telling him he was in the right. If old man Naobito just rolled over and did as he asked, he would have been beyond annoyed. Meaning all his preparations would have been for naught. But no, he'd already taken steps. He kept one hand behind his back just in case. His so-called father noticed, of course, but he'd concealed it so he didn't know what he was holding. Naturally, he could use his cursed technique and get behind him, but he wouldn't. He was too drunk at this time of day, too busy laying around his room what a dump, and lazing in past glories. At 10 years old he'd put up with so much he knew the geezer's habits very well. "You really don't get it, do you, old man?" He planted his visible hand in his pockets and stood his ground. "This isn't about what you will or won't allow, it's about what will be. I'm telling you what's going to happen as a courtesy, one that you frankly don't deserve." The man that had sired him took a deep drink of his gourd, sake spilling out over his lips. "You're strong, I'll grant you that, but not strong enough to take the clan from me. You have no idea." Outwardly he only smiled. "Let me tell you a story." The temperature in the room spiked, flames flickering at the edge of his vision. Once upon a time, there was a man named Itachi Uchiha. He raised his gaze to stare placidly at his sire, knowing full well Naobito wouldn't get the context. That only made it all the more amusing. He was a prodigy in his clan. A genius among geniuses. One served his clan for many years. Until one day he committed an unspeakable crime. Not for pride or glory, or honor or any of that, but for the sake of someone he loved. He closed himself off to the world, hardened his heart, and did the deed, all to save that which he held most dear. The Zenon patriarch took another long drink from his gourd and burped. "What nonsense are you spouting?" Blue eyes blazed gold. "I am talking." Naobito clammed right up. "You see," Naruto continued, his grin gaining an edge, "he massacred his entire clan. Every man, woman and child. All save one. His baby brother, Sasuke, whom he loved more than anyone in the world. Now some might say it would have been smarter to kill him, because letting that one live caused a whole host of problems down the road, but the fact remains that he couldn't. There's more to the story, but the gist, and the point I'm trying to make here is this." His eyes narrowed as he exhaled. "Love makes you do some crazy things." The old man found his voice at last. "And what does that have to do with this conversation?" "I'm so glad you asked." A sphere of dark light seared the wall mere inches from his sire's head, searing away the half of the man's thin mustache on the right side. It turned to ash and crumbled away at their feet, much like the man's confidence. Cheeky old geezer didn't look quite so smug now, did he? Judging that reaction, he hadn't even seen that attack coming. That confirmed a secondary suspicion of his. He'd surpassed Naobito's speed long ago. Truth-seeking orbs were a right bitch to dodge. "See, I love Maki and Mai." His grin grew as he called the sphere back to him. With but a thought he used creation of all things to reshape it into a staff in his grasp. "They're my adorable little cousins. I've only just met them and adore those girls. I would die for those girls. I would kill for those girls. Of course, that includes entire Zenin clan. I hope you understand." Naobito sat just a bit straighter. "You would kill your own blood?" Such a stupid question. Of course he would. I have never once considered you, or any of the higher-ups, my family. If he could have seen his reflection, he would have been startled. His eyes were dead and cold, like so much tempered steel. You're all like dogs. No, worse than dogs. His lips curled in an ugly sneer. You're mongrels. All you do is yap and cling to past glories. Thankfully, I don't particularly care about anyone else in the clan. At present I'm apathetic to the lot of you. I don't entirely hate you, but I certainly don't love you either. Yet if you were to push me. His hand waved and the wind yowled, lifting his hair. I'll show you what I can really do. What are you saying? You'll also cease any and all bullying of Maki and Mai. Additionally, in about 10 years' time, he dragged the last word out, watching for the elders' reaction. Let them leave the clan for Jujutsu High if they want. If they decide to stay out of the clan, you will make an effort to pursue them on pain of death. That's quite a stilted offer, the elder stroked his chin, considering. What will I gain in exchange for all this? Now they came to the bargaining bit. He was looking forward to this. In exchange, I'll stay. Naruto held up his hand and began to count off the fingers there, from thumb to pinky. Not only do you get to keep me, your perfect, powerful heir to rival Satoru Gojo, but I'll swear to take no actions against the Zenin clan during those 10 years. I'll even commit to a binding vow for that decade if you're feeling twitchy. Lastly, you get to keep your head. It sounds quite beneficial, wouldn't you agree? And if I refuse, Naruto tiled his head, then I kill all of you here and now. The geezer laughed at him. A bold claim, but do you really have it in you to slay? Soundlessly, Naruto revealed the free hand he'd kept behind his back this entire time. Ogi Zenon's severed head hung from his grasp, dangling by the hair, face frozen in mute horror. Naoya, what have you done? Naobito tensed at the sight of his dead brother. By contrast, even in the face of his fury, Naruto's smile didn't waver. He threw the man's head at the man whom he'd never called father. Ogi's skull struck the ground, bounced once, and rolled to a stop at his feet to stare blankly at his brother. What have I done? Naruto scoffed at him. I've done what I always could. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Maybe now the old man finally understood who he was dealing with. His words were no idle threat. Even at 10 years old he was confident in his ability to counter anything the clan threw his way. The man who sat before him was not his father. Not his real father. He might have put him in a woman's womb and they might share the same DNA. But insofar as he was concerned they had no such bond and they never would. Minato and Kushina would always be his true parents, no other. And so he kept smiling at him. It was not a nice smile, far from it. This smile promised pain. So, what'll it be, old man? At length, the elder Zenin surprised him, because he threw his head back and laughed. You little monster. When did you become this ruthless? Naruto tapped his staff on the ground. I am what you made me to be. Hurry up and decide. Will you live? Or will you die? Naobito gave him his answer.